or to that they can lose their freedom of thinking, living in this kind of institution. So they will do a personal research, spiritual research. They will do it individually, and only after they've experienced something significant for themselves, they will turn again toward the institution to recognize that they are saying something that can tell me that can reach me personally. They won't buy this from the first meeting. Only after a personal experiment of their spirituality, they will come to that conclusion. So, as a maturity, the community is not a source of conversion anymore. It's the place where people who experiment something spiritually, they will come after a significant time of personal research and maturation of their faith. So it's a big revolution in the way. So that's why when we reach out for evangelization, when we receive someone in spiritual counseling, when we speak about faith, we don't start by the rules or by the moral we will start by the personal experience. And it's a must. There's no way around that, because only with a true experiment of the presence of the spiritual presence within them, once they will have linked this experience with the message of Jesus Christ, of the tradition of the gospel, only then they will start to understand that the teaching of the church says something real and personal to them.
Bill 21, it's very recent.
Yeah.
It's in it a few weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks, I think. How has that played a role in terms of the religious symbols? Is that prominent enough to talk about current Quebec culture and how that's affected? Is that something you could talk about briefly?
Yeah, well, it's the expression of fear, I believe, because when you have to defend your culture or your freedom with laws, it's like you're afraid of something, or it's like a confession of weakness to me. In Canada was always a land of peace, of freedom, and when you travel around the world a little bit, you see people fighting one another, and you meet these same people here in Canada. There's like a common will for peace, and we won't be the best friend ever, but even if our houses are closed, we want to send our children to school. We want to live a normal life. So I think that was like a silent agreement all over Canada. So once you try to defend that with laws, it's a bit scary, because that means maybe people lost confidence in one another, and maybe fear that a religion one day can take over and impose their way of thinking and their beliefs to the others. So people are sincerely thinking that defending diversity with such a law, can prevent them from take over one community, religious community, or to take over the public ground and to impose themselves. Well, I'm very doubtful. I prefer the mutual trust that spontaneously led the good sense of this country since its creation, and so this is why I'm a bit doubtful that this bill is motivated more by fear than a true will to live with the others, because sign is important for religions. Signs are to religions what language is to our ideas and our culture. If you cut the signs, doesn't mean people will stop to believe, but it's in their blood. I mean, you need the freedom to express who you are, and religious belonging is not a detail. It's part of you. It's very deep. So if you're impeached to express it publicly, and so it touches the right of people. It's a fundamental right. And so I think it's dangerous to go and play with laws on this ground, because it can touch and can oppress some fundamental and legitimate laws, rights of the people.
What is the biggest danger in Quebec specifically to the isolation of people due to electronics and commercialism that the church could potentially reach out and do? You touched on it already, but how important is this when we see suicides, when we see murder, shootings in America especially? You're having a lot of shootings in schools. Yeah. Could this potentially be due to the isolation that the church community otherwise could have created? How does a church reach out to help people who are in such... Can a church do that in a way that could make a difference, or is it something that can only happen within the kind of comfort of fellowship that is, how do I explain, more sort of traditional fellowship, church fellowship? Is there a way the church can reach out on that level to help people who are otherwise?
Of course. The church in itself, by essence, is an assembly. It's a group. It's a community, and people are longing for that deeply, but they are scared to do it because they think that if they involve themselves into a group as small as a marriage or family, they will lose their freedom. So Pope Benedict has wonderful words on that. Confusion between freedom and fear of engagement. So of involving yourself, and people think they'll lose their soul. So for the first outreach and the first message is a personal message, a call for personal meeting with your own spirit, and then the spirit of Jesus Christ. If you can give face and a word to this expression, discover the power of this revelation. But then what for? It's not to stay alone on your side. It's to join the community, to give yourself to others, and to understand the community not as a place where you lose your freedom, but a place where you will expand it and express it and reinforce it in all ways. So once you have when you have passed this conversion point, the community is a prophetic sign in the middle of a city of lonely people, and when they see a group of people that gathers for other things other matters than money or an interest in common, they feel everybody who walks here. We have coffee after church. We have dinner every Sunday, potluck. People bring stuff, all kind of meeting. And the people who comes discovered this place not only as a place where we celebrate cult, but a place where we can meet nice people. But this is very strong in the United States. I was astonished when I traveled in the United States how some communities were so close, and so a brother of mine lived in Purdue University in not Penn State. West Lafayette, Indiana.
Just a little
bit. He lived. This is out of record, but he lived there, and during his first year, he met practically no one on the street. He was on his own. He was teaching as an engineering at the university, and as soon as he stepped in the church, in the Catholic Church, he just introduced himself to the priest. He said, "Hi, I'm here. I've been here for a year. A nice church, and we'll come here once in a while with the kids." The day after, the telephone started to ring, and all the neighbors, "We saw you at church," and their social life started then. And I think that's the kind of prophetic sign that the church can still be within a city and within a country, a place where we gather, where we recognize one another, where we can share not only ideas but also friendship and faith and.
But if the church is so disliked even today, how is that achievable on a realistic level?
That's a good question, but I think that people who push the door here feel the difference between a false or an aesthetic community or a community of interest and a true community of people who just share deeply, deep respect and share faith together. I don't know. It's undescribable, but people who come here feel like there's something different, and they feel like they want to be part of it.
When I shared with a friend of mine here at my only other time in Montreal about my feeling of God recently, I had an experience where I felt it was God for sure. It was a very warm and surrendering feeling, and I had to share it with my Montreal friend. And he looked at me and he turned at me and he said, "You know I'm an atheist." And I said, "Okay, but maybe I have, you can still receive my experience." And he repelled against it and said, "No, I don't want to talk about it." And I thought, okay, now is this atheism have something to do with the effects of the church or dogma that has been put on him? And is there a way that the church could reach out, or in our spirituality that I think is so interesting, the discussion of combining spirituality with church instead of imposing dogma, which I feel like Quebec is more progressive than America. You might disagree. I couldn't help but think, how could this possibly be done? Or is the so I guess my question is the atheism coming from the church? Is it coming from his